As promised, here's Bruce Garrioch from Post Media to deliver his all-time Ottawa Senators teams. You know, Bruce, prior to this year, the Sens unveiled an updated version of their original logo from 1992, and you've been covering the team since that day, day number one, so nobody better to do this. The all-time Ottawa Senators team, team number one, you've got Craig Anderson in net.
Well, to me, he was the only choice to lead this team. Craig Anderson spent a decade in the Senators' net, Glenn. He's the winningest goalie in franchise history with 202 victories. He helped lead this team to the Eastern Final in 2017 while his wife Nicole was battling cancer. And down the road, I think he deserves to be honored and have his number pulled to the rafters because he did a lot for this franchise. Let's turn to defense now. You know, I started with Wade Redden, and this was a difficult decision for me because Chris Phillips has had his number 4 retired. But Wade Redden here was brought here as part of a three-way trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs and New York Islanders, and he had a great career here, playing 838 games and 410 career points. He grew up here, and I think he deserves to be honored because he had the best plus-minus in team history at 159. Erik Karlsson, to me, was a no-brainer. I know he had a difficult departure from the city, but he had 518 points in 627 career games with the Senators. He's a former captain, and his trade to the Sharks will continue to pay dividends down the road because Tim Stützle looked pretty good in his rookie season.
Now, the forwards you have chosen here on this list formed one of the most dangerous lines in hockey in the mid-2000s, but it's still an interesting pick, I think, for a lot of people when you say Danny Heatley is on your top 5.
Well, did I have to put Danny Heatley on this team? In the words of Daniel Alfredsson, probably not, but I think he was the right choice in this situation. Look, he had an ugly, unexplained departure from the Senators, but you cannot argue with his numbers. 250-goal seasons in the 4 he spent here, and 180 in his career with the Senators. He's the best left winger to ever suit up for this franchise, and you can't argue with that. Center Jason Spezza, to me, is one of the most skilled players that ever pulled on a jersey. Had 687 points in 668 career games, just an amazing number. He formed that pizza line, as you said, with Daniel Alfredsson and Danny Heatley, and they helped lead that team to the Stanley Cup final in 2007. And of course, the heart and soul of the Senators is on the right side, Daniel Alfredsson. During his 17 seasons here, he was captain for 13 of those. He had 426 career goals and 1,178 career games. He had a flair for the dramatic. He scored, of course, the emotional overtime winner in Game 5 against the Buffalo Sabres to lead this team to the Stanley Cup final in 2007. And he's the first player to ever have his number retired. Of course, even his 400th career goal was an overtime winner.
As for head coach, you have Jacques Martin as the first-team all-time coach. Why Martin, Bruce?
You know what? 8 seasons behind the bench is remarkable, especially in this day and age. And you think about how Jacques Martin helped this team turn the corner and become a contender. He shaped a lot of those players who have had success in the National Hockey League, Glenn.
All right, stick around for the second intermission. Bruce will be unveiling his second All-Star All-Senators team and some much more difficult choices with that one, Bruce. Once again, joined by Post Media's Bruce Garrioch, who in the first intermission unveiled his first-team all-time Ottawa Senators. Time to unveil the second team, Bruce. There were some obvious choices on the first, but not so much here on the second team. Let's start in net with Patrick Laleem.
Well, Patrick Laleem was a tough choice, Glenn, but I think he was the right choice. He had 146 wins in the Ottawa net in his career here. He helped the team get to the East Final in 2003 against the New Jersey Devils before losing an emotional Game 7 on a heartbreaking last-minute goal by Jeff Friesen. A loss to Toronto in Game 7 and a couple of bad goals against Joe Nundyk spelled the end of his career here in Ottawa. On defense, it was very difficult for me to put Chris Phillips on the second team. He's the only defenseman in this organization whose number is hanging in the rafters, but you look at the points and they're just not there. Still, Phillips had an ability to score big goals for this team, and nobody will ever forget his emotional winner in Game 6 against the Devils to force that Game 7. Then there's Zdeno Chara. You could say his career in the National Hockey League took off here, and he's gone on to have a Hall of Fame career because of what he established himself as here in Ottawa. He was a tough guy to play against, and I think anybody will tell you, dealing him The deal made to bring him here from the New York Islanders is one of the best in franchise history.
Yeah, Bruce, and up front you have Shawn Mckechrin, Alexi Ashton, and Marion Hosa. Hosa, interestingly enough, was the guy the Sens traded away to get Danny Heatley, who you had at right wing on the first team.
And I would say it's fair to say that that's one of the most shocking trades in franchise history. You know, Marion Hosa had just signed a contract extension, and then he was moved for Heatley. He had 390 points in his 467 career games here with the Senators. He went on to a Hall of Fame career, and he's just a classy, classy person. Alexi Ashton will be a controversial choice because of his contract disputes, but you cannot argue with what he did on the ice. 491 points in 504 career games, and he was dealt to the Islanders in 2000 because basically he couldn't play for Coach Jacques Martin. Shawn Mckechrin was just a good player for this organization. He was dealt here from the Bruins in '96, and he helped transition this team into being a good contender. He had great chemistry with Alexi Ashton and Andre Stackel, and went on to have 142 goals in 454 games. An alternate captain, Shawn Mckechrin, was also a leader for this team. As for the second team head coach, I chose Brian Murray, who had 2 stints behind the bench. He was the only coach to ever take the Senators to the Stanley Cup final before they lost to the Anaheim Ducks in 2007. He made the players want to step up for him. He made everybody around him better. The only issue Brian Murray had when he became general manager, he could never find anybody to replace Brian Murray.
You've also listed your all-time captain and alternate captains. And Bruce, was there anyone else that you wrestled with maybe who didn't make your list?
Well, look, Daniel Alfredsson to me was an obvious choice, and Randy Cunningworth also led this team through a transition. But Chris Neil, to me, was a guy I could have put on that second team. And I also had to give consideration to Mark Stone because he was a guy who made an impact during his short time here. And like Neil, he led by example.
Well, you can see the full story and all of Bruce's all-time All-Stars tomorrow in the Ottawa Sun. Thanks for this, Bruce.